What ho chaps, I'm MagicalMike and Mighty Throw is absolutely stupid. This skill used to have a 3-second cast time, which was more like 1.5 with how attack skills with cast times actually work in Guild Wars, but whatever. Now, after a balance change, it has a 1-second cast time that's more like half a second. And at a minuscule cost of 2 adrenaline, you can throw these every other attack by default. It moves 3 times faster than normal, so it's not easily dodged, does massive damage comparable to dagger spam builds, and has spear range. If all that sounds like jargon, then let me simplify. Mighty Spear Machine Gun Go rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. In this video I'm going to go over 11 builds, one for each profession, plus a bonus hero supporter, to let you spam the hell out of this one overpowered, very silly, gimmicky skill. And let me be clear, it's sort of fun to mess about with this gimmick, but it quickly wears off, and honestly I don't believe a skill this strong should exist in the game balance as is. The thing needs a 1-second cooldown or something, because being able to do this much damage at range is undeniably ridiculous. Also, not fun to spam one key on your keyboard for that amount of time. Even if this does get a nerf, I reckon all these builds will still be viable anyway. You'll just do a bit less damage, and I think that is fine. Anyway, like and subscribe, and let's start with the strongest version, I think, Warrior. All the templates are in the description by the way, and you'll notice that every single one has Azure Scan and Disrupting Throw, so I'll mention them a couple of times. And obviously Mighty Throw is in every build. I'll also mention some optional skill ideas in the description if I forget to say them here. So, 7 weapon stance is our elite of choice here, bumping our spear mastery to its max of 20, also covering our increased attack speed, so that's nice too. We then cast Enduring Harmony and 4 Great Justice to boost its duration from 20 to 30 seconds, and giving us 2 adrenaline every time we hit with an attack, which is pretty rad, since Mighty Throw only costs 2 adrenaline to use, meaning pew 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 machine gun go. Honestly, that'd be good enough for the whole build, but I'm the strongest can give us a few hits of big numbers. Azure Scan helps against anything that tries to block or make us miss, and Disrupting Throw is there because it can interrupt stuff should that need arise. You could just ignore that and keep spamming damage though, and it does need a condition to work, so hopefully your team has at least one condition for you. And finally we have an optional skill. I've put points into Tactics for the template for Protector's Defense, giving us a 75% block chance as long as we don't move, but this also affects adjacent allies, so it works well on a turret build like this and a minion army or a caster team. You could put Command or Motivation skills here instead if you like. Find Their Weakness is massive damage if you can afford the energy, and then you got Fall Back and Stand Your Ground if you want to use those too. Instant activation skills like Shouts that don't cost adrenaline are best so that you don't stop the Mighty Throw spam. Paragon up next with a pretty similar setup here as well. Alternating Focused Anger and 4 Great Justice, we can have that 100% uptime on our double adrenaline generation skills. Aggressive Refrain gives us increased attack speed at the cost of some armour. We've got Azure Scan again, but this time we're swapping Disrupting Throw for There's Nothing to Fear because it's such a strong support skill. This is optional though, you could just put the interrupt back if you like. Find Their Weakness is on the bar by default for extra damage spikes, and since it provides Deep Wound as well, it'll power your interrupt should you choose to take it. The final slot is They're on Fire, just to keep Aggressive Refrain up. Could you use Heroic Refrain here? Yeah. Do I like using that skill? No. You might though, but you'd need to do some small tweaks, and you'd lose that 100% adrenaline uptime too. You could consider swapping They're on Fire for some other upkeep shout, but this one's instant and it's convenient. You might also like Spear of Fury and save yourselves instead, but I'm not convinced it's much better than simply spamming Mighty Throw. See how this skill is pretty dumb already? This bar is fairly energy intensive by the way, so watch out for spamming too many shouts. You'll see I've been microing BIP on myself in the footage, but in regular combat you'll have your team with you, so leadership will soften most of your energy woes, but not completely. Ranger comes up next. We've got Together as One as our elite for its massive DPS increase, also helping any other martial weapon users in the team, plus also all the regen is nice too. With a tiny investment into Beast Mastery, Comfort Animal can bring along a pet, Never Rampage alone gives us attack speed, and Scavenger's Strike helps with energy management. Also it instantly activates, which is handy too. The classic Azure Scan and Disrupting Throw picks, and Blazing Spear is here because, well, because it is really. You could swap another pet attack here if you like, but again we're mostly spamming one skill anyway. There's not really much to this build, huh? You could swap the elite for Infuriating Heat, which gives you extra adrenaline, which is handy to have, but it's tough to advocate giving up one of the strongest PvE elite skills in the game for it. Which is why we'll talk about the hero support build next. This is a Necro Ranger that's built purely as a gimmick to help the other builds get adrenaline faster with infuriating heat, along with a bunch of other support skills from blood magic and curses to boost physical attacks. The Ranger Spirit, even at 0 expertise, lasts for 30 seconds and recharges in 15. These things have massive range too, so you can precast it way ahead of combat to keep it quite safe, otherwise it's likely to take some random AoE damage and die since it's at level 1. You could give this hero an Of the Ranger mod to boost its level, or an Of the Ritualist to give the spirit more health, but I don't want to pretend that that's actually worth the cost. As in, I don't think it's really worth investing the cash into this one gimmick. The skill itself gives you extra adrenaline on hit, so Mighty Spear literally funds its own adrenaline cost, so you can spam it on any class. Otherwise, on the bar, we have Blood Bond to give us health every time we hit with an attack, Mark of Fury for even more adrenaline every hit, Weaken Armour to boost damage generally, Signet of Lost Souls for energy management, Barbs and Mark of Pain again to boost physical damage with extra packets of damage, and yes, Mark of Pain will cause scatter, but running enemies are useless enemies, so it's not that bad. And finally we've got Order of Pain for, guess what? Yep, that's right, more physical damage boosting. You could swap something out here for Dark Fury for yet more adrenaline, but I think we've already got plenty of sources already. Now you might ask, is it worth adding an entire hero to boost the Mighty Throw gimmick? And my answer to that is no, I don't think so. Is it worth making a whole video on this gimmick as well? Also, no, I don't think so either, but here we are. For the rest of the player builds, including the Ranger if you don't swap Infuriating Heat on yourself, I'd say it's nice to add at least that one skill somewhere on one of your heroes. It's not that bad to go without it, but if you do want to dedicate a party member, then this is the build that I went with. Assassin next, with a weird feeling variant. We're using Shadow Theft to boost our attributes by 4 or 5 depending on how good your crit strikes are if you've got the superior rune. This gets our crit and spear mastery to 20 and 17 respectively, which is pretty massive. Combined with Critical Eye and Way of the Master, we'll be lobbing critical mighty throws constantly, and quickly thanks to Critical Agility's attack speed boost. The assassin does have one extra gimmick though. Since Shadow Theft puts us into melee range, we can use Spear Swipe to daze something for 4 seconds. This is a leadership melee spear attack, so it almost never sees real play. It's got a 20-second recharge, which isn't great, but with our 0 investment it's not that bad for quickly shutting down a dangerous enemy very briefly. Also, it's kind of funny to just teleport into melee range and slam a spear into something at point blank. Still using Disrupting Throw and Azuran Scan, by the way. Dervish is a little disappointing because I thought Avatar of Balthazar or Onslaught would give us the extra adrenaline to spam Mighty Throw, but neither skill manages it. I've gone with Balthazar anyway, but frankly you could use Melandru, Duena or Lissa if you like. They all have their minor benefits. Elemental Armour and Health with party-wide Condition Cleanse, party-wide heals, or faster recharging flash enchantments. Flash enchantments are instant cast skills, which is nice for Mighty Throw momentum spam. Balthazar's Rage gives a tiny bit of adrenaline. Zealous Renewal can pump out a bit of energy management. Pious Fury is our attack speed increase, just tear down any enchantment for it to last a bit longer, and that includes Aura of Thorns for bleeding and cripple. Helps Disrupting Throw too. You could go with Onslaught if you want to swap to Wind Prayers, which allows for a little bit of bar compression since you don't need Pious Fury then, but how much is this really going to help? This build isn't going to benefit from some of the support hero skills that I mentioned before, since a lot of Dervish skills change our damage type away from physical, so do be aware of that as well. Unfortunately, we're lacking good teardown skills in this build, so the enchantments feel a bit confused. Most teardowns are scythe attacks, and we're obviously throwing spears instead. You could add Signet of Pious Restraint in Wind Prayers, even with no investment, for an AoE 5-second cripple though. It's worth a shot. Elementalist also suffers from the elemental damage swap. Since we can leverage fire magic, I figured we might as well add Conjure Flame for like 20 extra fire damage per attack. Drunken Master is about the best we can do for increased attack speed, but I wouldn't say to waste booze on this skill. And then we've got Double Dragon, which works best when you have a melee ally to cast it on, and ideally you're also in melee so that you get the most damage out of it. It's a nice damage over time thing as well, so it doesn't interfere with the spear spam. Extra bonus, every time you do throw a spear with Double Dragon active, you burn the target as well, which means Disrupting Throw's conditions are also met. I put Meteor on this bar as well because it's a good skill, it's an AoE interrupt, but it is largely optional. You could put an Ebon Vanguard Assassin in the final slot to have a Double Dragon target, or I Am the Strongest, or really whatever you like. Mark of Rock maybe? This build does need a fiery spear for Conjure Flame to work, which isn't ideal, but there you go. One Ellie build for spamming Mighty Throw. Monk, again, suffers from the elemental damage type change. We're going to have Holy Spears here, so our Necro hero loses a lot of effectiveness again. This is another one that I'm not overly pleased with, but Monk just isn't really made for doing much damage, and Smiting Prayers are their own thing really, best interacting with melee builds than ranged. Saying that though, we've got Judge's Insight for armor penetration and some holy damage, Symbol of Wrath for a damage over time AoE skill, Drunken Master to boost our attack speed, and a small interaction between Zealot's Fire and It's Just a Flesh Wound. Zealot's Fire does AoE fire damage around an ally that you use a skill on, and since It's Just a Flesh Wound is an ally targeting instant activation shout that you can spam every 2 seconds, you can use this to spam AoE fire damage if you have an appropriate target for it. You might need an ally pet or a melee hero for this one. You're also going to need a battery for this to work well, because all these skills are going to eat away at your energy, especially spamming Flesh Wound with Zealot's Fire active. We don't even need any motivation investment to make Flesh Wound work. It's a bit tough to swap between spamming Mighty Throws on enemies whilst also spamming shouts on an ally though, so good luck with that. And if there's no good target for this idea, you could always just use Ray of Judgment, but that's not very interesting to actually talk about. Necromancer can alleviate its adrenaline issues on its own a little bit. Mark of Fury gives extra strikes if you pick your targets well, so you can spam Mighty Throws more often here. Problem is that you need to recast it a lot, and it only has a 50% uptime too. Apart from that, we've got Barbs and Mark of Pain just like the hero support build has. This does slow you down a lot to keep having to recast these spells, so it's not the greatest, but it can be self-sufficient, which is something. Soul Taker is here for a big damage boost, but since you'll be sacking health a lot, you'll also need more attention from your healers, so perhaps it's not really that self-sufficient. Either way, Drunken Master, Azuran Scan and Disrupting Throw are all here too. Ritualist is almost considered a meta build, combining Spirit Strength with Weapon of Aggression to pump out hugely boosted spear damage at an increased attack speed. You could go with Vital Weapon for a much longer lasting weapon spell, since you'll need to recast Weapon of Aggression every 15 seconds or so, but then you'd also need to add Drunken Master, so give or take. Renewing Surge for a damage over time and energy regen spell, I Am the Strongest for simple added numbers, and for the optional slot we can have Lamentation as a cover hex, Gaze from Beyond or Spirit Burn if the team has spirits for condition application, or even Painful Bond if there's offensive spirits on the team. Real simple build here and pretty strong even before the Mighty Throw buffs. Mesmer is the last profession I'll be talking about because frankly there's nothing in its kit that I could find to make Mighty Throw better. If illusionary weaponry worked with ranged attacks then it would be a different story, but it doesn't, so I went with Fevered Dreams instead. Spear Mastery has a few condition skills in its lineup, so it works pretty well with Fevered Dreams, although I'm consistently disappointed with how slow this elite feels to play with in a lot of builds. Anyway, this elite spreads your conditions to other foes in the area when you apply new ones, and if you apply 2 or more conditions you also get added days. It's a very strong elite, it's just not very direct damage. Add Fragility for some more packets of AoE damage when the conditions are spread around too, and when they're taken off. Then we go with Barbed Spear for bleed, Blazing Spear for burning, and Chest Thumper for some deep wound. Hopefully your team already has some cracked armor to enable this one. Drunken Master for faster attacks, good old Azuran Scan, but aha! No Disrupting Throw this time because we're going to have Daze from the elite, which does just about the same job. Mighty Throw is still in this build, but it feels like it doesn't really have much synergy here because it doesn't apply any conditions for Fevered Dreams. This Mesmer build isn't bad if you would just want to chuck spears, but for the Mighty Throw spear spam theme of this video, it's kind of the black sheep. And there you have it, a load of silly gimmick builds to let you go nuts spamming Mighty Throw on whatever profession that you like. Some of these builds are good, and some of them are propped up heavily by Mighty Throw's power alone. Hopefully you can see how overpowered this simple spear skill is, and I was pretty sure that they were going to nerf it, but since they haven't done that so quickly, here's my take on it in PvE. Fair warning though, it does get pretty old quick to just be spamming one skill. Quite tiresome on the hands as well. So I guess go have fun lobbing spears at stuff, and if you've got any better ideas for builds with this skill in it, then let me know in the comments. I will be reading as always. I've been Magical Mike, and cheers for watching.